to the Trailblazers. I'm your host, Perry Rarick. The purpose of this interview series is to share with you interesting discussions I have with trailblazing business leaders. They're innovative, thought provoking, they're experts in their field, and they're not afraid to challenge the status quo. My trailblazer guest today is Julie Ann Cabana. She is the Chief Marketing Officer for Altasciences, and they're a pharmaceutical research, development, and manufacturing organization, or a CRDMO, in the pharmaceutical space. And we're going to hear a little bit about them in a minute. Julianne has over 25 years of experience in the biotechnology and pharmaceutical B2B space. She served in a variety of global business development, marketing, and leadership roles in companies like Origenics Technologies, CTBR Technologies, which is now Charles River Laboratories, and Wuxi Aptech. She is especially skilled at identifying burgeoning markets, then helping organizations build and scale services that become key revenue streams that drive growth. As the Chief Marketing Officer for Altasciences, Julianne is a valuable member of the C-suite, where she plays an important role in shaping the company's strategy, driving growth, and leading teams dedicated to helping clients advance critical drug therapies through an extremely arduous drug development process. Julianne, welcome to the Trailblazers.
Thank you very much, Perry, and thank you so much for including me in this amazing series. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for that compliment. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Rarely do I get to talk to anyone that understands this topic we're going to discuss today as deeply as you do, and just came freshly from doing this. So this is going to be really exciting. And today we're going to discuss, like I said, a really, really big topic. And we're going to discuss it in a way that it's rarely spoken about, and that is rebranding. So I would say that discussions, and I'm going to be a little critical, discussions of rebranding often disappoint. And I'm going to use an analogy of buying new clothing. We have this idea that we want to buy a wardrobe, and we're seeking this big, new, attention-getting image, and we end up with a new pair of shoes that don't fit well and take way too long to break in. So rebranding is more, I'll start here, is more than simply a logo change and a website update. And in 2019, Julianne, you led a successful rebranding initiative at Altasciences. She's going to tell us all about that. But before we get to that story, can you just tell us a little bit about Altasciences? And you're this new era of not CMO, not CDMO, but CRDMO.
Yes, that's right, Perry. Exactly. So Altasciences is a bit of a unique type of organization where we focus on early drug development solutions. The reason being is that, as you're aware, because you're aware of the industry, you're familiar with the industry. Most of the drugs that start to get tested, there's a lot of them that end up in the early phase. And then as you continue on, there's attrition and you get less and less that go through the pipeline and end up in phase 3 and on the market. So early phase development is really an important space where a lot of data is captured and helps you to be able to progress on to the next phases. So as an organization, this is the area that we've decided that we really wanted to focus on and build an integrated offering. So a lot of the times you see a lot of CROs or CDMOs kind of operating separately and offering different pieces of the puzzle as they progress in drug development. We wanted to do something different. So we thought, okay, how do we really truly offer an integrated service where, you come to us with this lead candidate, and then you say, I want to start to get to at least phase 2A. I need to get the data there. So we literally built that organization where you can come to us and we can take you through from lead candidate selection to clinical proof of concept, and in some cases beyond, depending on some of the studies that you'll need, either in, in talks or in the clinical space. or even bioanalysis and manufacturing for commercial. So we kind of do a little bit of all, but really focus on the space, early phase development space.
Great explanation, very clear, and, I think it sets us up well, because now you have to explain that to an external audience,
Yes.
and that's what we're gonna be talking about, mostly today. So, when you're doing something as big as a rebranding, the way you and I, are gonna be talking about it, it's a big project.
Yeah.
And it's like all big projects, there's a who, what, where, when, and why. So I'd like to start with the end, the why.
Yeah.
What was the context and background that caused you to decide we're going to rebrand and take on that big task? Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. So, when we started off, we were mainly a clinical company focusing on early phase clinical, actually, even starting with generics. And then we moved into innovator type of compounds that we were testing for. But the vision, our idea was a little bit what I was talking to you about before. We wanted to be able to really offer our clients something where they could come to us and say, we have this molecule, we want to get it to proof of concept. How can you help us? So, we built the company's strategy around that. And so we started acquiring businesses, across North America. So whether more clinical companies, or we even moved into the preclinical space, and then we started to develop bioanalysis further, and then also added manufacturing to the mix. And so as we did that, we acquired different organizations that had their own brand, their own names, their own recognition in the industry. And so in 2018, we said, okay, we've got all of these different brands that exist, and we've been kind of living under this umbrella of Altasciences. So we'd have, Algorithm Pharma and Altasciences Company. We'd have Vincent Associates Clinical Research and Altasciences Company. And it was too much at this point. We're like, okay, we really need to let people understand who we are, what's our mission, what we're trying to accomplish, and how we can support you as our client. So that was the why we wanted to rebrand. And the goal was to be able to really articulate our story properly within the industry. And also one step further than that, when telling our story and when we were thinking about the rebrand, we wanted to make sure three things. We wanted to make sure, number one, that when we talked about our messaging, there's a lot of companies that talk about integration and that they offer an integrated service. But we were really building something that every time we acquired, we integrated immediately. We didn't try to reverse integrate later on, 10 years down the road. So we wanted to make sure that this was very clear to our client base. We wanted to make sure that they understood, as I mentioned, what our mission was, who we were as an organization, and the people behind it. Really trying to give people a sense of who Alta Sciences is, not as the company itself, but as the people behind it that's making all of this happen. So we wanted to make sure when we were doing this rebrand that we were going to be touching on all those points. And also, and I know we'll touch on this later, really talk about how we wanted to be disruptive when we were doing it. We didn't want to look like everybody else because we weren't like everybody else. We are a different type of organization. We've tried to think about ourselves, our operations in a different way, our science in a different way to be able to offer a different kind of solution to our clients.
Yeah,
So that was the why.
that is a very good why. That is very clear. Yeah, so many companies. There are a lot of companies out there that are in that fragmented state that I don't want to overstate that, but fragmented capabilities that seem disconnected. Some of them stay there and it
Yes,
works well, but I
yes.
can completely understand why you did what you did. All right, working through the who, what, where, when, and why. The next next thing, what, and that's a big one. What did you do? And
Mhm.
I'll let you organize that however you like, the framework, the components, the characteristics. But what did you do?
Yeah. So I think this is important, and you kind of touched on it before when you said it's not just about changing a logo and putting a new website out there and slapping a few words together and saying, "Hey guys, folks, this is who we are." It takes a lot of planning. It's not something you can do in a month. We took a year to prepare ourselves to launch our new brand. So as I mentioned, we in 2018 we decided, okay,
Wait a
we're
minute.
going to
Can I stop you? I wanna,
Yes.
that deserves a pause. So, wait a minute. You spent a year
Yes.
just planning. 1 year
Yes,
plan. Okay.
yes. All
One day I
complete.
didn't want to get that by I didn't want that to pass by too quickly.
Yes.
Okay.
I know, I know. A lot of people are like, "What? Can I do it in 3 months?" I mean, obviously, it depends on the size of your organization and, the types of services. If you're offering maybe one service in your smaller organization, sure, you could probably do it in a shorter period of time. But we had, at the time, was it 5 different brands coming underneath one brand? We had all of these different sites that we had, integrated or were in the process of integrating internally, and we needed to showcase that externally. But there's so many parts to it, which I'll go through, that it really would require a year. If we were going to do it properly, where whatever we were going to be, the story we were going to be telling, the real story, because I don't want it, when I say story, it's not to say that we're making up something that's, fake and not true, but whatever story we were going to be telling to our clients and prospects, we wanted to also make sure that our own people, our employees, were on board with this story and felt this story and believed in this story. Because if I'm telling a story to somebody and then they're having a totally different experience, there's a disconnect, and your clients will feel this, and that's where you start to lose the trust and the belief in your organization, and that's where reputation starts to kind of fail and so forth. And then your brand is not, it's not maximized the way it could be. So, that was really important to us, that when we were planning, that the planning was gonna be not only on a front end, like, on the front end of things, but also behind the scenes with the organization, so that when it launched, everybody was on board, everybody was aware of what was happening. It was clear, it was almost intuitive in a way, like, it was just natural, and that it just would make things easier when we presented this to the world.
That's so that 1 year, there was a lot of internal communications, getting everybody's head wrapped around this.
Yes. So in that 1 year, the way we had kind of divided the tasks, if you wanna say, if you wanna, like, take it the next level down, there was, okay, what is our message? Who are we? How are we gonna say who we are? How are we really gonna show this so that people feel it when we're telling them the story? And this is something that I guess we'll get into at a certain point, where we really took a person to person marketing approach. It wasn't going to be like this whole B2B where you feel it's very cold and you're talking business to business. No. When you're, even if you are a B2B in a B2B situation, you're still talking to people who have emotions and feelings. And when they're buying and when they're interacting with you, there's a whole bunch of factors that come into play. And so you want to make sure that you're connecting with all of those different factors. So we really took a long time. We started with focus groups, actually, to have an understanding of how we were seen now in the in the industry, so that we could see, okay, this is how we're perceived now, and this is how we want to, like, tell people who we are and what we want to be, if we're not perceived the way we're hoping to be perceived in this moment. And so that was one thing we looked at. We looked at also, that word integration I talked to you about before, because this was key to our whole strategy, was that we were offering a early, like, phase drug development solution that was truly integrated. So we wanted to check with our audiences. Do you believe, like, when somebody says that, oh, we're an integrated CRO, or we're integrated with this and that, do you believe it? If so, what makes you believe it, or what doesn't make you believe it? So there was a lot of work that went around all these focus groups and reach outs to organizations in our industry. So we understand where we are now, what their what is it that will help people believe or help us to tell our story so that they can truly believe who we are. And then the second part to all of this was, okay, we take this information and now we're going to translate it into who Altasciences is and the brand that we're going to lay out. Like, how are we going to look at our actual logo? How are the messaging behind it? We looked at pillars, on what are the main pillars to be able to support that messaging. Taking a look at what are our visuals going to be like that are going to tell that story visually. How are we going to tell it? Is it going to be, not just with content that's on the website, but how do we become thought leaders in this space? How do we tell stories? Where are we going to be more focused on videos? Are we going to be more focused on writing stories? All of these other aspects that come into play to be able to really create the brand of who we are. And most importantly, what I told you before was the whole disruptive aspect. We wanted to make sure that when we're telling our story, person to person, that we are truly explaining that why we're in this business, all of us, not just us as Altasciences, but our clients are in this business to get better medications to the people who need them faster, right? Yes, there's profit involved in all that, but there is also that goal of being able to like, I want to get this drug to the market that's going to help somebody. And why do we get drugs to the market? So that people can feel better, so they can do what they love in life. So we wanted to take that aspect of the end goal, which is, people, I don't know, skydiving, driving their car, just having a walk, or just, enjoying a ride on our motorcycle, or anything like that. The everyday, um, that that's what we're trying to achieve. So making sure that that was going to be incorporated into the brand and into the story that we're telling.
That is a great story. Now we're still in the first year of planning,
We're still
right?
in the
We
first
haven't
year.
left yet.
This is all
I just
happening
love
in the first
I
year
just
because
love
all
it.
of this takes so long.
It is so good. It's so refreshing to hear this. This is really good. I want to ask you something. So you initially set out, you wanted to understand um, how far away, like you wanted to get the impression of your target audience.
Yes.
How far away are we from what we want them to think about
Yeah.
us? How,
Yes.
how much of a gap was that? And did it even matter?
So it it did matter because if you want to be credible, I think in your story, you need to make sure that if you're starting at A and like if everybody sees you at Z, but you want to be at A, like that's a massive gap. And like, okay, how are you going to be credible in telling this story? But I think what was key for us and where the gap wasn't big were there were several factors. Number one, even going back to when we were looking at companies to acquire, we always chose companies that had a similar culture to who we were and how we operated and had that real focus on customer service because that's very important to Alta Sciences. I know a lot of companies say this, but we really try and take it as far as we can go. Automation, like when you call Alta Sciences, you can get somebody who's gonna a receptionist that's gonna answer and say hello. Like you can have a human person answering you and not like press 1 for this or do you know the extension, all this, and you're just kind of getting frustrated. Or you can always reach somebody, whether it's through your business development person, operations, or whatever, and access also to executives. So being able to talk to the CEO. You want to talk to the CEO, it doesn't matter who you are, he's going to pick up the phone and talk to you. So we wanted to make sure that companies that we were looking at purchasing had a similar view on how they interacted with their clients, because obviously that makes us more successful as an organization to bring them on, to integrate, and also being very careful. I know this is not so much marketing, but it does impact marketing in the end. Um, Going through the whole integration process is not going in and saying, okay, now you have to change everything. Well, we bought these companies for a reason because they were good at what they did and that we saw value in them. So it's not about coming in being like, okay, we came in now and now we're going to change everything you do because you have to do it like us. No, it's how do we learn from you? What can we use? How do we like bring this together so we're better together as a unit? And I think that's was during that year and starting with the focus group was very key for us to understand what were our like strong points, to make sure that that was a story that continued to be told. And if there were things that maybe didn't align with where we wanted to be, making sure that internally we set up plans on how do we achieve that, and then also being able to tell the story that goes along with it from a marketing perspective.
Such an important step that I think most people miss
Yes,
or skip. Is to really seek the truth because it's
yes,
there whether you
it
want to
is.
admit it or not. Yeah.
Mhm.
Just, brilliant. Here's something else I want to ask you about.
Yeah.
The other thing you stated, which really got my attention, which I think is striking, is you 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 got focus groups and talked to your target audiences and said, "Hey, if we claim that we can be,
Yes.
this integrated giant
Yeah.
company, are you even going to believe us?" How
Exactly.
believable. How did that go?
So that was really interesting because there was a lot of skepticism in that word integrated organization. And even to this day, sometimes I feel I feel strange using it because I still wonder if people truly believe it, but I think once they work with us, they do definitely get what it is we're saying. Like, people use it so often, all the time, like, words like experience, expertise, integrated, all of these words that are constantly used. And so when we were asking these questions in the focus group, it was to understand, do you buy this, what people are saying? And if not, how, what would make you buy it? And so this was the interesting part because a lot of the answers we got was, we can't really tell you how we would buy it or if it's true. It's like, it's almost like a intuition. We would just know by interacting with you was almost the thing. Or it was, I think it's not possible. I don't think anybody can really do it. So, because so many people have said it and said they do it and they just don't. So it was interesting to see that kind of a response. So you're thinking to yourself, okay, we know we can do it. So I think that was part of it too. So we believed and we knew we could do it. So we're like, okay, now we need to translate this in examples. And so we did go through some time coming up with different ideas and thoughts about how do we showcase this so that people believe it. And where we saw the opportunity is kind of what we were thinking in the beginning, was using our people. So showing that we weren't siloed between services, departments, sites, by bringing people together in our videos, in our discussions, showing that they're actually sitting in the same room, interacting. So trying to really, um, yeah, offer that visualization of what it is we were trying to say and do.
Yeah, that's excellent. The other thing that you mentioned, which some people do, not everybody does it well, but highlighting your customer's customer in your marketing collateral. Maybe we'll get into this in a little bit, but don't be afraid to talk about the patient. That's what's
Yeah.
motivating your customers,
Yes.
the drug innovators.
Yeah. And I think that is also a little bit of a personal for me, there's a personal aspect to that too, is I was very, very close to my grandparents growing up, extremely. And as they got older, my grandmother had diabetes, my grandmother and grandfather had heart conditions, and the drugs that were on the market allowed me to have probably a good 10 to 15 more years with them than I would have had they not had access to this. So this was always a little bit of a personal part of the journey for myself. And so I always wanted to bring that back in, is that there's a lot of talk out there, like, oh, these companies are just trying to make money and they're just trying to gouge and everything. But the reality is, first of all, it's extremely expensive, as you know, to develop a drug. There's a lot of drugs that fail, that don't make it, and these companies have spent all of this money this whole time trying to develop them, and they don't end up reaching the market. So there's a cost involved, but at the end, these drugs have helped people, and I've seen it myself. I mean, even when people just, you've got an infection, you take an antibiotic, like, you know, if that wasn't there, what happens? So I think this was very important for me to be able to tell this story and to remind people, like, I know everybody thinks this is a business and industry, money making machine, if you want. But actually, there are people at the end of this that are benefiting from the drugs that are being developed. So I think that was very key for me to make sure that that message was included.
What a great personal motivation story. That's really, thank you for sharing that personal story.
Thank
Okay, so at what point, it may be in this planning year, but maybe after you started executing, okay? But you're talking about it like, we started off talking, this is not just a logo change. This is like a major, major change in your
Yeah.
business model. When did you start thinking about, like, what kind of marketing team do I need? What kind of skills do I need to execute what we're planning to do?
That's a very interesting question because I think out of everything, I mean, the whole planning, the 1 year, I'm just gonna go back, the whole time we were a very small team. There to start off, it was me and one other person. That went through, and then we added maybe, sorry, no, me and 2 other people, and then we added a few more to as we went through this whole rebrand. And as we went through it, you start to realize, because if you are doing it properly, you start to realize how big of a project this is, because like I said, it's not just the website, it's all of your, you've got to make sure that the content you're created makes sense. Now, now you have to optimize it for SEO. I mean, you have your Google ads, you have all kinds of, you have LinkedIn, you have social media, you have, looking at metrics, you have, if you're using Pardot for Salesforce, you've got that aspect to it. So you have the website maintenance, you have, looking at CRMs and all of these uh, kind of like expertise that you need to make sure that you have on your team to make sure that once you've launched it, yeah, it's great, but you got to make sure that you're going to keep everything working at a maximum pace, and keeping up with all the changes that, as I'm sure you're aware, are constantly changing now. It's like every week something becomes obsolete or it's changed, or you need to be keeping up with everything. That having the right people in place to be able to sustain this, this massive change, this growth, is extremely important. And without the right people, which, that was one thing that we did have a hard time with. We didn't always have the right people in the right place. And you can see how it can really affect, what it is that you're trying to do and accomplish. So, that was a part of our journey that wasn't always so smooth. But now I mean, I might be biased because it's my team, but I think I wanna say I have the best marketing team in the industry. The people, first of all,
I'm
the
sure
people I
they're very happy that you said.
I know, I hope so. The people I work with are all incredible, very talented, very creative, um, and always willing to help each other and come up with new ideas. And, we don't always reinvent the wheel. Sometimes we take a look at what other people have done that have been successful, and we're like, that's kind of cool. And how do we implement that into our industry? We make some tweaks to it, and we use that concept and we apply it to us. So it's the team is extremely important, and how you set up the team is very important also.
And what does your team look like today?
So today we're 15 people, and the way the team works is, it's our team is actually a pretty small team for the size of our organization, but we've kept it like that on purpose because we want to make sure that there's a lot of bureaucracy. We can make changes quickly. We can like be more creative with a smaller team. It allows us that when we're smaller. And the way we have it is we have a group that handles the operations for the marketing team. And then we have, the individuals that we call strategists, although everybody's doing some sort of strategy, but these strategists are really handling each of the service, offerings that we provide to our clients to make sure that those are getting the right type of, a maximized, I guess, visualization and, presence in the market, for each of those different services. So whether it be preclinical, clinical, BioA, manufacturing, CRO services, or and so forth, that each of those are really, being cared for, as well as on the operational side, having the whole brand, the messaging that goes across to bring that integration so that you don't have people just going off and doing stuff on their own without remembering there's a brand here, there's a whole story, and that everybody has a part to play.
So you mentioned silos. Silos can cripple organizations. They
Yes.
do, and you are very intentional about dismantling or unsiloing.
Yes,
How do you
very.
go about that? Can you talk about the secret? Well, maybe there are no secrets. It's probably just hard work.
I
But can you talk about how you do that?
I think the secret, for us, what's helped us be successful, in that regard, and no one's perfect, right? Because you still have to remember you've got sites across, vast distances and people working all over the place doing their part, and but what we've intentionally tried to do as an organization, and this came, from our CEO as well as the people on the EC, we worked together for a very long time, and we've all had the same vision where we need to make sure that everybody's talking together. This is not a competition for like I feel insecure because you're achieving something and maybe I haven't achieved that, and then I'm gonna not I gotta like hold on to my things and not speak because to you because like now I feel threatened, which insecurity is what leads to a lot of silos a lot of the time, as well as, as you grow, if there's the communications not there. We've tried to really eliminate that as much as possible and make sure communications often happening. So starting with the CEO, and I'm going to talk to it more from a marketing perspective, he really bought in and understood the importance of marketing in an organization. And so that helps because when somebody really believes in marketing, they give you the flexibility to be able to do what you need to do to make it successful and make it help support the business in a positive way. And it also allows marketing to be able to make sure they're communicating properly with all of the different departments. So when we've set up our marketing team, what was very important for me, and probably because I had a business development background, was making sure that marketing wasn't off doing something that had no relevance whatsoever to what was actually happening in the industry, the business, or spending money without really thinking about, is this really worth spending money on? So these were things that were very important. So what we did is we made sure that the marketing team would be in constant communication with business development and operations, where there were actual teams that are led by our marketing group, like different individuals on the team that meet regularly throughout the year to talk about everything that's done, that's upcoming, see if we need to make tweaks. Is there something different happening in the industry that we weren't expecting from before, so that everybody's aligned, there's no surprises, and what we're doing actually matters and can support the rest of the organization. So I think that that's something that's been key to our success, and also for buy-in from the different departments in what we do, because it's transparent and they're involved. So if you're involved in something, you're not about to say, "Oh no, I don't believe in that," or "I don't want to do that," or "I'm not going to help support you," because you're actually involved and you have a voice in being able to um, help with the direction of where marketing's going.
So, just brilliant, brilliant stuff. This is really great. So most of us who end up in B2B life sciences, we didn't even know this world existed, and then we end
Yeah.
up, in this career. People who, so now we're going to address something. Those people who at a young age said, "Boy, I love this marketing stuff, graphics, visuals, all of that." Those people, now we're going to address what they're here for. All right.
Yep.
They're always interested in that. So, can you just give us an overview of how that aspect of your rebranding, uh, how that came about? What is it now compared to what it was before in that fragmented sense that you talked about?
So I think before the rebrand, there was a lot of different messaging happening. There was, people recognizing different brands because they'd been around each of those brands had been around for a long time in the industry. And so that was also a transition period where we went to just Altasciences. You have to go from something that's been in the industry for a very long time to a new name that's relatively new that not a lot of people know, even though you had put like an Alta Sciences company and on everything. It's still not the same as to when you remove it and then that's it, you're just Alta Sciences. So um I think it was really key for us to make sure that that transition was done carefully, that you had a certain amount of time where, let's say for 3 or 6, no, actually, I think we did 6 months, but if you had been in the industry for like, let's say 30 years, we kept your brand for not at least 9 months and put an Alta Sciences company underneath. So that, and then just like started to introduce to all of our clients about this change is coming. This is Alta Sciences. We're still, and when we made the change, a lot of messaging that went out to the like personalized messages were created that went out to clients to say, "Hey, the name's changing. It doesn't mean that the people that you've worked with or the feeling that like that's not changing, because we bought this company, as I said to you before, because we believe in it and it has the same values that we do." So you'll continue to see that. And so there's all of that that goes through it. And I'm not sure I'm answering your question. I think I went on a tangent now and I'm not 100% sure anymore
No,
on the
no, that's perfect. No,
right.
that is very good. So I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Like, you had a timeline, you were very intentional, and you had a timeline when you separated the old brand from the new brand, the Altus.
Yes.
So visually, you look different. When
Yes.
if somebody would go to your website, you visually look different. What went into that?
So from the beginning, the number one thing I had said was, we definitely want to be disruptive. We want to look different. We don't want it to be boring. We don't want it to be all science, like lab coats and lab goggles and everything. And not that science is boring. I love all the yeah, science is I have a passion for science, so I think it's great, but the same blue and white that you see, very sterile kind of feel, we're like, "Okay, no, we wanna bring the green in, first of all, because green represents life, it represents success, the green money and all of that, so we wanted to bring in that whole green aspect, and that was gonna be our color, and at least it wasn't blue, it wasn't white, it wasn't I mean, those are usually the colors you see in our industry. And then the visuals, as I had talked about before, was really about we're living life, this is what drug development's all about, this is the end goal, so let's show that. And then one step further was we wanna do a lot of it with, looking at the people, so making sure that it's very personal, that the stories are personal, the interactions that you have when you're on our social media are as personal as possible. That was very key for us, and making sure that when somebody came to look at our social media feed or came to our website, they're like, "Oh, this is kinda different. This is cool. Like, I wanna explore this a little further." And also, actually, it's had a positive effect in recruitment because people look at this, they're like, "This I wanna be a part of this organization. Like, this is somebody who's different in my space, and I wanna see who they're all about." And that's one feedback we continuously had after we launched our brand is that we really started to be able to recruit really great high caliber talent because we kind of stood out. And so that
Wow.
was important.
Very cool. That is very cool. And of course, it's important to be sterile in life sciences, but we don't want to look that way. I get
Yeah,
exactly what you mean. These canned lab coat
yeah.
picture. Yeah,
With
yeah,
the goggles and everything, and you're
yeah.
just like,
So
okay.
I get it. But yeah, so perfect. You also going back to highlighting people. When we spoke earlier, you said that kinda changed the kind of content you were producing. You needed to highlight. I think you said you had subject matter experts involved in authoring content. That's a different so if you could talk a little bit about that. How did you make that happen? And I assume that you had to get some expertise in your marketing team to be able to produce that kind of content versus
Yeah.
just some light messaging.
Yeah. So this is where having the right people in the right place. And with time, we found those people in marketing where they're able to, first of all, develop the relationships with business development and our scientists. That's number one. Because if you can develop the relationship with them, build that trust, build that team, then you can end up being able to ask them to help you with a lot of the material that you need to produce. But also, we don't want them spending all their time producing marketing material because they need to be doing the actual work. So, when hiring, there's the candidates that we're looking for, depending on the position, a lot of emphasis is put on can they write, and how can they write, and can they take a subject that they really know little about, research it, and be able to at least create a base that then our scientific experts can take a look at and then edit so that we can come up with a final product. One of the things that we do too that's very key is if we are doing anything that's scientific or heavily has got a lot of science in it, we make sure that the subject matter experts, we have like an outline, and the subject matter experts will put in the key scientific points that they want to raise in this document. And then business development will put in the key points that they want to make sure that we get across that they are hearing out there that will help us make, stand out compared to competitors. And then once we have that, then it goes to the person in marketing writing it, they write it, and then it goes back to the subject matter expert to take a look and just edit. And we found that that's been something that really works well for us.
A process, a
Yes.
content process. That's
Yes.
beautiful.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
music to my ears. You're doing so many things right there.
Thank you.
Okay, so so measuring results. This is
Yes.
one that, we run out of time, forget about that, we're not gonna talk
Yeah.
Measuring results is so important because you had an outcome that you had set out. You
Yeah.
spent a lot of time planning it. Now, how did you measure results? Like, are we really achieving what we wanted to with this rebranding?
So metrics, I think, as you mentioned, this is something that many people will just kind of gloss over and feel like, oh, it's okay, we can kind of skip that. I've done all the work, but actually, metrics is one of the most important things to be looking at in marketing for several reasons. Um, Number one, you're being able to take a look at what's working not working. Number two, you're able to create results that you can share with the organization so that they continue to see the transparency of what it is you're doing, the results that it's having, and the impact that it's having on the organization so that they feel part of what it is that you're accomplishing in marketing. And what we personally like to do is we set up KPIs at the beginning of every year. We take a look at how things went in the past year. And then we set up our KPIs, which are effectively our metrics for the following year based on the results and what we've seen in the past. On are we going to continue doing some things or maybe tweak some things or stop doing them altogether? Once those KPIs are set, we review them on a quarterly basis, but we issue reports monthly, quarterly, and annually so that, for example, our quarterly report's about 50 pages long. And what it does is that it talks about everything that we've done and it breaks it down into emails that we've sent, social media, the website traffic, inquiries on our website, how many chats. And then our conferences that we've attended. Because we didn't really talk about conferences, but that's also a big part of our marketing and where we try and differentiate ourselves at these meetings also. But so there's metrics for our conferences and all of these metrics are put out and then um the target that we have where we sit compared to the target if it's plus or minus and also a comparison to last year at the same time. And then we have links to all the clients, like lists of clients that it actually brought in work for, like that they inquired about or whatever. So it's not just saying stuff, you're actually creating a sense of tangible results where they say, like, oh, this person clicked on that. So we have lists, 300, 400, so that they can see. So they click on the link that's put into that section, and then they can go straight to the list of companies that did click on these emails or interacted with us on social media, filled out the forms, chatted with us, on our chat. All of these things so that it becomes real. And then there's a value associated with marketing because a lot of the time there's this difficulty in really associating an ROI with what we do. And for most part, it's tough unless they fill out a form or they send an email on the website and then you get an inquiry and so forth. It's tough to measure the impact of, oh, I've sent out this many emails, this many people opened it, and what kind of impact is there? Um, there's different systems that exist right now that are embedded. Like we use one that's embedded with Salesforce so that we can kind of take a look at. It uses AI to make a link between emails sent out and responses that we've received or people that have opened, and then inquiries and so forth. But really trying to create that visual, tangible feel to what it is we do helps us be able to continue getting money to be able to do what we do and showing the impact that we do have in the organization and the sales that do result as a result of our efforts.
I love how you describe one, you're communicating it to the organization.
Yeah.
So many marketers say, well, I'm just communicating it up,
Yeah.
but
Nope.
everybody knows about this. The other component that really stands out is is that you're communicating like what works, what doesn't work. It's not just the end state, which is a business development closure.
Yeah.
So it's really good. That's it. It's a long, complex buyer's journey. You
It
should
is.
look at the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes. Yeah.
so wonderful. So how do you articulate a KPI? Like without giving it away too many secrets, what constitutes a KPI? What does that sound like?
So for an example, I'll use one example because we, like I said, our reports are so thorough. But let's just say we'll use simple email, like sending out an email, right? So we have an open rate, click-through rate. We have a benchmark that exists, although there isn't one specifically for the CRO business or CRO CDMO business, but we take an average and then we say, okay, have we kind of surpassed that benchmark? Are we below it? Are we in line with it? And so you'll see the section in the report that will say, okay, these were the results. This was the average click-through rate, the open rate click-through rate. This is comparing it to the same time last year. This is comparing it to the benchmark. These are the companies that clicked on it. So you have the whole list. And that's kind of what you'll see in that section. And then we do the same thing, social media. Okay, we had X followers last month. This is how many we've added in the last quarter. This is the our average engagement compared to our competitors. Like, is there more engagement happening with our information that we're putting out there, or with our competitors, and where we stand and rank from that perspective? And then uh, the top, you'll see in that section too, like the top most watched videos on our social media feed, or and the top most clicked on links, or uh scientific journals or whatever. And we always list the top so that people are getting an understanding of what's been really popular, versus, even though we have a lot of content, there's some that's more popular than others. And it can vary, and it also helps to guide us where to go in the future. So that's what you'll see throughout the report, and it's quite detailed. So you'll see numbers, you'll see tables, and you'll see a lot of explanation that goes with it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, so many companies jump right to the sale. And
Yes.
of course, sales wants to take credit for the
Yeah, of
sale.
course,
Yeah,
as they should, because they are technically closing it. We're
sure.
here to create opportunities, right? And they're here to close it. So, and we're here to help them support whatever material helps them close it. Then we've done our job. But yeah, but you're right. That's how a lot of companies will look at it. But I think that the more transparent you are, the more information you share, the good, the bad, the ugly, then the more people trust in what it is you're doing, and that's not smoke and mirrors, and they see where the money is going and how it's being spent and the results of that expense. And also, as a result of, let's say if we bring in 100 million in inquiries, we contribute to 100 million in inquiries. Well, that's great. You see that was what marketing brought to the table, and that's a value that wouldn't be there if you weren't doing this properly.
Yeah, really good stuff. Your CEO was on board with this. You mentioned
Yes.
you slid in ROI. I'm glad a lot of people go right to that, but
Yes.
you did talk about ROI. How's it going with communicating this to the C-suite? When you
Mm.
talk to them, they probably don't have time to pour through 500 pages, but you're going to
Yes.
summarize that. And how do you communicate this report to them?
So the way it works is that in all of our reports, well, actually in our quarterly reports and annual reports, we have an executive summary. It's 2 pages, and it summarizes all the key points so that you can just take a look at that. It's a snapshot. If you want to go into more details, you just click on the section that you want to go into more details on, and it brings you there, and you can read as much as you want. If you want to, before bed, take out the marketing report and just lie there and have a read, then go for it. But we purposely have a 2 page summary. I meet regularly with the CEO to be able to keep them up to date with things that are going on, and things that have been successful, things that, we're struggling with and that we might need to pivot on. And also at the executive meetings, I will, provide some updates when necessary. Um, and then also with our board of directors, these reports are going out to them every quarter and annually, so that they can see what it is we're doing also, as a team, as a group. It's for me a way to showcase my team, and to, like, say this is all the hard work that these people did this year. Like, they really poured their heart and soul into getting the Alta Sciences name out there. And this is what they've been able to achieve. So it's for me, these reports, I'm very proud of them, because it really helps me to say, yeah, this is what they do every day, and there's a lot. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. I'm glad you made that last point, being able to highlight your people, which you mentioned throughout, our discussion here about how important the people are. Uh, We started off by talking about rebranding, but boy, did it turn into so much more. Thank you for that, Julianne. This was just a great discussion. So many things you're doing right there. It's going to be hard to keep up with all of these great, valuable points you made. My guest today has been Julianne Cabana. She is the Chief Marketing Officer for Altasciences. Julianne, thank you very much for being with the Trailblazers today.
Well, thank you so much for considering me. Honestly, it's a true honor, and I really appreciate you taking the time to hear what I had to say.